The galaxy was vast, cold, and full of dangers that no human could have imagined. Yet humanity had stretched its hands into the void, sending ships to explore, to trade, and sometimes to fight. The human fleet, though modest compared to the empires of the stars, moved steadily through the darkness. Its ships were patched, repaired countless times, and sometimes barely held together. Still, the crew aboard each vessel carried hope, courage, and a stubborn refusal to surrender. Far away, in a chamber made of living crystal that shimmered like flowing light, the alien council watched humanity's fleet appear on their sensors. Admiral Zyron, a towering being with skin like polished stone and eyes sharp as blades, laughed. "Look at them," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "They call these fragile crafts a fleet? They are barely fit for scouting missions, let alone war." The council laughed with him. Their ships were massive, built from rare alloys and armed with weapons capable of destroying planets. Against them, the humans seemed like ants, insignificant and weak. Zyron leaned over the holographic map, showing every human vessel. "We will crush them. It will be over before they even know it." Back on the USS Perseverance, Captain Elias Hart walked along the bridge, watching his crew make the final preparations. His eyes were calm, but inside his heart beat faster than ever before. The reports from intelligence were grim. The alien fleet was enormous, technologically superior, and merciless. Many would have panicked. Hart did not. He stopped in front of a young pilot, barely 20 years old. Her name was Lena, and she was trembling slightly as she strapped herself into her seat. "Captain, they're too strong. Maybe we should retreat." Her voice faltered. Hart placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "We are not here to retreat. We are here to survive, yes, but also to show that humans do not give up. It does not matter how small we are. What matters is the courage inside us." Lena nodded, swallowing her fear. Around them, other crew members worked in silence, preparing weapons, checking shields, and making repairs. Every person on the bridge felt the weight of what was coming, yet no one faltered. There was fear, yes, but also determination. The kind of determination that refused to be measured by numbers or strength. The alien fleet moved closer, sending their first message, a broadcast filled with mockery. "Pathetic creatures," their voice boomed across the void. "You bring toys to a war among gods. Turn back now and your lives may be spared." Hart listened quietly. A shiver ran down his spine, but he did not speak. He knew that words like that were designed to intimidate, to break the human spirit. He knew better. Humans thrived on being underestimated, and this mockery, only made them stronger. As the alien ships approached, Hart's thoughts drifted to Earth, to the billions of humans living unaware of what awaited in the stars. He thought of the children who would grow up proud of their species, no matter the outcome. He thought of the brave men and women who had chosen to risk their lives on this mission. And he thought of the fleet itself, small but unbroken, patched and battered, yet shining with a light the aliens could never see. "Captain," Lena whispered, gripping the edge of her console, "do you really think we can win?" Hart looked out at the dark, dotted with tiny stars, and gave her the answer that burned in his chest. "We don't need to win today. We only need to fight, and if we fight with everything we have, the universe will never forget us." The crew of the Perseverance and her sister ships felt that promise like a pulse running through their veins. Fear was present, but it was mingled with a fierce pride. They knew the odds were against them. Every measure of the galaxy said they should fail, yet something inside them refused to bow. The alien fleet, massive and gleaming, loomed closer. Their shadows stretched across space, swallowing stars. And yet the human ships, small and humble, pressed on. In those vessels, in every heart, burned a fire the aliens could not comprehend. A fire of courage, hope, and stubborn defiance. Somewhere deep in the void, the humans whispered prayers, made promises, and held their loved ones in thought. They knew this might be their last battle. But they also knew one truth above all else. The galaxy could laugh at humanity. It could mock their fleet, sneer at their ships, and dismiss them as insects. But humans never surrendered, And in the silence of space, as the first flashes of alien weapon fire approached, Captain Hart whispered to himself, "Let them laugh. Soon, they will learn the cost of underestimating us." The stars watched in quiet anticipation, waiting for the clash that would echo across the galaxy. The void erupted in fire. Alien lasers tore through space, striking human ships with terrifying precision. Explosions lit the darkness, sending pieces of twisted metal spinning like stars. On the bridge of the USS Perseverance, alarms screamed and red lights flashed. Crew members clutched consoles, sweat streaking their faces, yet not a single one ran. Fear was there, yes, but it was tempered by determination, by a will stronger than any alien weapon. Captain Elias Hart's voice cut through the chaos. "All stations brace. Divert power to forward shields. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." His hands moved over the controls, steady and commanding. He did not panic even as the ship shuddered under another blast. Around him, his crew mirrored his calm, trusting him. Because he had always been more than a captain, he was a symbol of their resilience. Lena, now in her fighter squadron, gritted her teeth as her small ship darted between the alien beams. Her pulse raced, but she could not hesitate. One wrong move, 1 second of fear, and she would be gone. "We can do this," she shouted into comms, her voice shaking but resolute. "Stay sharp. Aim for their weak points." The alien fleet had expected humans to panic, to scatter, to die without a fight. Instead, they found the tiny fleet dodging, weaving, and striking back with shocking precision. Human engineers rerouted energy from damaged systems to weaponry and shields. Pilots maneuvered in ways no alien had anticipated. Each small victory, each alien ship grazed or disabled, ignited hope among the human crew. On the bridge, Lieutenant Mara called out, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. "Captain, Cruiser D-14 is exposed. We can hit the engine core." Hart nodded. "Lena, take your squadron. Focus fire on D-14, everyone else hold formation." Moments later, Lena's squadron sped toward the alien cruiser, lasers flaring as they dodged heavy fire. The human ships were small, fragile, and slow compared to the alien monsters. But they were clever, unpredictable, and relentless. A well-aimed missile struck the alien vessel, tearing through its shields and igniting the engine. A chain reaction rocked the cruiser, and it erupted into a massive fireball, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Cheers erupted on the human ships, brief but powerful. It was the first real victory, a moment proving that humans were more than just fragile vessels. They were warriors, adaptive, fearless, and full of heart. The alien commanders recoiled in shock. Their massive warships, which had destroyed entire fleets of other civilizations without effort, now trembled at the unpredictability of humans. "Impossible," Zyron growled. "These insects, how can they resist us?" Back on the Perseverance, Hart's expression remained calm, though pride glimmered in his eyes. "They don't know us," he murmured to himself. "They've never faced humans like this." In another corner of the fleet, a small supply ship shuddered as it absorbed another blast. Crew members huddled together, whispering prayers for their friends, their families, and for courage. Even here, amidst fear, there was determination. A young engineer whispered to his companion, "We may be small, but we will not break, not now, not ever." The battle raged for hours. Human ships darted in and out of alien fire, disabling communications, striking engines, and retreating before the enemy could retaliate. Each action required split-second timing, courage, and ingenuity. And every human who survived another attack felt the bond of unity. Each life mattered, each act of bravery fueled the resolve of others. Hart watched, his heart heavy with worry, but proud beyond measure. "We're not just fighting to survive," he said quietly to Mara beside him. "We're fighting to show the galaxy who we are. Humanity does not bow to fear. We do not kneel to giants. We endure." Even as casualties mounted, even as explosions rocked their ships, the humans pressed on. and the aliens, watching their carefully constructed battle plans unravel at the hands of beings they considered insignificant, began to hesitate. For the first time they felt uncertainty, and with it, fear. In a small, quiet moment, Lena looked out at the alien ships, her eyes shining through the visor. "We're doing it," she whispered. "We're really doing it." Hart placed a steady hand on her shoulder, his voice low but filled with conviction. "It is not over yet, Lena. But we have shown them the first truth about humans. We are not afraid. And when they underestimate us, that is when we are strongest. The first contact was brutal. It was terrifying. It was chaos. But it was also a revelation. The galaxy had never seen humans fight like this before. They were small, yes. Fragile, yes. But their hearts, their courage, and their refusal to yield made them something no alien fleet had ever encountered. A force to be reckoned with. And in that moment, as the stars reflected the flashes of battle, one truth became clear. Humanity had arrived, not as prey, not as pawns, but as warriors, unpredictable, fearless, and alive with the fire of the human spirit. The battle had raged for hours, and the void of space was now filled with the glow of explosions and scattered debris. The human fleet had suffered losses, but their courage had not wavered. Each surviving ship moved with precision, every crew member knowing that even one mistake could mean death. Yet the humans fought with a determination that no alien could understand, a stubborn, unyielding will that turned fear into power. Captain Elias Hart stood on the bridge of the USS Perseverance, staring at the holographic map. The alien fleet was vast, but cracks were appearing in their formation. The humans had struck at weak points, disabled engines, and disrupted communications. "They underestimate us," Hart said softly to Mara, his second in command. "That is their first mistake. But it will not be their last," Mara nodded. Her eyes were sharp, her hand steady on the controls. "Captain, if we push now, we can force them to split their fleet. Their cruisers are vulnerable on the flanks." Hart's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then we do exactly that. Prepare strike teams. We move at dusk, fast, precise, and unpredictable." The small human ships, nimble and daring, darted between the massive alien warships. The humans had learned to use every advantage. Shadows of asteroids, debris fields, even the glare of distant stars to hide their approach. Unlike the alien fleet, which relied on size and power, humans relied on speed, intelligence, and adaptability. It was dangerous. Every mission could be a death sentence. But they carried no fear that could break their spirit. Lieutenant Lena led one of the strike teams, her small fighter weaving through fire. "Focus on their engines," she barked over comms. "We hit one, we slow them all." Her squadron moved like ghosts, evading beams and missiles, striking hard and retreating before the enemy could respond. A single explosion in the heart of a dreadnought sent shrapnel flying, tearing apart smaller vessels nearby. The aliens had never seen anything like it. For the first time in centuries, their warships were vulnerable, and their confidence wavered. On the bridge, Hart's eyes glimmered with pride and sorrow. Pride for his crew's bravery, sorrow for the lives already lost. "Every life matters," he whispered, "and every sacrifice strengthens us." The alien commander scrambled to respond. Aaron roared in frustration, his massive hands slamming on control panels. "How can these insects fight like this?" Every calculation, every prediction, meaningless. Human ingenuity struck again. Engineers aboard the Perseverance had devised a plan to use modified drones to disable alien shields. Mara coordinated the drones, sending them into the gaps in enemy defenses. The drones hit their targets, and one by one alien shields flickered and fell. "Captain," Mara said, voice tense with excitement, "their left flank is exposed. If we strike now, we can cripple half their fleet." Hart's jaw tightened. "Then we strike, but we do it smartly, one step at a time." The humans launched their coordinated attack. Missiles, lasers, and drones worked in unison, hitting critical systems, disabling engines, and sowing chaos among the aliens. The massive cruisers that had seemed invincible were now stumbling, confused, and vulnerable. Lena's squadron hit another warship, her pulse racing as the vessel erupted into flames. "We did it!" she shouted, barely believing her own words. In the alien command chamber, Xeron's face darkened with rage. "Stop them. Do not let them—" But it was too late. The humans had proven something the aliens could not understand. Their spirit could not be measured in firepower or size. Humans fought with heart, courage, and a willingness to sacrifice everything. Back on the Perseverance, Hart looked out at the chaos and whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning. The universe has laughed at humanity for too long, and it is about to learn the truth." The turning tide was not just about strategy or skill, it was about the indomitable human spirit. Every ship that survived, every life that endured, sent a clear message to the galaxy. Humans were not prey. They were warriors, small but unbreakable, clever and brave and willing to face death without surrender. And as the human fleet pressed forward, striking hard at the alien left flank, one truth became impossible to deny. Humanity was no longer underestimated. They were no longer dismissed. The galaxy had begun to see that humans fought not just with technology, but with something far stronger: heart, courage, and an unshakable will to survive. The aliens may have laughed at the fleet when it first appeared, but now, as one by one their ships faltered and fell, silence began to settle in the void of space. The humans had turned the tide, and the battle was far from over, but the first victory had already been won. The battlefield stretched across the darkness of space, lit by flashes of fire and the echoes of explosions. Ships floated like wounded birds among the debris, and the human fleet pressed on despite the losses. Every surviving vessel carried scars but also courage. Every crew member knew that each decision could be the last, but they moved forward with hearts full of determination. Captain Elias Hart walked along the bridge of the USS Perseverance, watching the young pilots navigate through danger. Each time a human ship fell, there was a silent ache in his chest. He had seen lives snatched away in moments, friends vanish into the void, and yet the remaining crew did not falter. Humans were fragile, yes, but in their fragility, they were extraordinary. "Captain," Lieutenant Mara said, pointing at the holographic display, "Squadron Echo has been hit. They're stranded near the debris field. If we don't move fast, they won't make it." Hart's face hardened. "Prepare a rescue team. Send the fastest ships. We're not leaving anyone behind." His voice was firm, unwavering, a pillar of resolve for everyone listening. Lena, now seasoned by the battle, led the rescue mission. Her small fighter weaved through laser fire, dodging fragments from destroyed alien ships. The odds were impossible, but Lena's courage never faltered. "We will bring them home," she whispered, her hand steady on the controls. "We do not abandon our own." The rescue was brutal. Human ships were small and vulnerable, their shields flickering as enemy fire struck. Yet for every ship that fell, another human vessel pressed forward, taking risks no alien could understand. One young pilot, barely 18, sacrificed his own escape to block a laser, allowing his comrades to survive. The crew aboard the Perseverance heard the news over comms and bowed their heads in silent respect. Each loss was tragic, but each act of bravery reminded them of what humanity meant. Hart stared at the stars beyond the viewport, thinking of the billions of people back on Earth. They had sent their best, their bravest, and now the fleet carried the weight of their planet's hope. "We fight not for glory," he murmured, "but for every life that depends on us and for every soul lost that reminds us why we endure." The alien fleet, seeing the human persistence, began to grow anxious. Their massive ships were designed to intimidate and destroy, yet these small, fragile humans refused to break. They adapted. They improvised. They sacrificed themselves for one another in ways no alien had ever considered, and that was terrifying to the enemy. Another human ship exploded near the alien front, its crew gone in an instant, but immediately another squadron moved in to fill the gap, striking at the alien flank. Mara watched the display, tears streaking her face. they die. And yet they fight on. Every life counts. Hart put a hand on her shoulder. That is humanity, Mara. Every loss strengthens our will. Every sacrifice becomes a story that fuels the courage of the living. That is why we endure. In the chaos of the battle, the humans used their ingenuity to their advantage. Engineers rigged damaged drones to act as decoys, drawing alien fire away from the fleet. Pilots performed maneuvers no one had thought possible, slipping between debris, evading deadly beams, and striking vulnerable points. Even the smallest human ship had the power to change the course of the fight. Lena's squadron returned from the rescue, battered but alive, carrying the survivors. They were greeted with cheers, and for a moment the fear and sorrow of the battle gave way to triumph. But Hart knew the victory was temporary. Every moment in space was a gamble with death. "Prepare for the next wave," Hart said, his voice steady. "They will not stop. Neither will we. We fight for those who cannot fight, for those who have fallen, for those who will follow us into the stars." As the alien fleet readied its next strike, Hart looked at his crew, young and old alike, each carrying exhaustion, fear, and hope. They were small, fragile, human, but in their hearts burned a fire that no alien could extinguish. It was courage, compassion, and a willingness to sacrifice that gave humanity its strength. And somewhere in the endless black, the aliens began to realize that the human fleet could not be destroyed by power or weapons alone. They had underestimated something far more dangerous than lasers or shields. They had underestimated the human heart. Hart's voice came over comms, calm but fierce. "Every life lost is a memory we carry. Every sacrifice is a promise that we will not fail. Forward, always forward. Humanity does not yield." In the quiet moments between the blasts, the surviving humans looked to each other, and a bond deeper than fear or death formed. They were warriors, yes, but also family, and in that unity they found strength stronger than any weapon the aliens possessed. The battle was far from over. The cost was high, but the heart of humanity was unbreakable, and the aliens had yet to see the full measure of their spirit. The alien fleet had never experienced fear. Its massive warships had crushed entire civilizations, leaving nothing but ashes in their wake. Yet now among the stars they were beginning to tremble. The humans, small, fragile, and seemingly insignificant, had turned the tide. And now, one by one, their battleships were going silent. On the bridge of the USS Perseverance, Captain Elias Hart watched the displays with quiet disbelief. "Report," he said, his voice calm but intense. Lieutenant Mara's hands shook slightly as she read the readings aloud. "Captain, the alien cruisers, they're shutting down. Engines offline. Communications silent. They're collapsing from within." Hart's heart raced. The impossible was happening. The enemy that had laughed at humanity's fleet was now in disarray, powerless against a force they could not understand. Courage, ingenuity, and unwavering unity. "Every move we made," he whispered, "every risk, every life lost. It all led to this moment." Across the battlefield, human pilots scanned the enemy with wary eyes. They had survived impossible odds, dodged annihilation, and struck precisely when it mattered most. Their drones had disabled key systems. Their missiles had targeted the cores of the alien ships, and in doing so, humans had proven that intelligence, strategy, and the human heart could outmatch even the deadliest technology. Lena floated in space near the USS Courage, her fighter damaged, but intact. She stared at the silent alien ships, her breath coming in ragged gasps over comms. They're all quiet," she said, barely believing it herself. "They've stopped. Every single one." Mara placed a steady hand on the console. "They underestimated us. They thought power alone could win against humans. But humans fight differently. We fight with heart." Even amid victory, there was no jubilation. The humans knew the cost. Ships were destroyed. Friends were gone. Every victory was paid for in blood. Yet in the silence of the alien fleet, a sense of awe spread across the human command. They had survived what no one had thought possible. They had turned the galaxy's laughter into shock and fear. Hart closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of every life lost and every act of bravery that had brought them here. "We honor them," he said softly. "They gave everything so that humanity could stand tall today. Every sacrifice matters. Every hero is remembered." The alien commanders trapped within their disabled warships stared in disbelief. Siron's face twisted in anger and fear. Impossible. They should be destroyed. Every calculation, every prediction, useless. But the humans did not celebrate the aliens' silence with malice. They had no desire for vengeance. They fought for survival, for courage, for the bond that made them strong. Hart's voice echoed across the fleet, firm and proud. "We fight for those who cannot fight. We fight for every human life. We survive because we do not yield, and now, the galaxy knows that humanity is not weak." The surviving crew members cheered quietly, tears of relief and pride mixing on their faces. Lena unstrapped from her fighter, her legs trembling, and hugged Mara. We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." Hart smiled faintly, his eyes scanning the dark void where the alien ships drifted, silent and broken. "Yes," he said, "but this is only the beginning. The galaxy will remember this day, not for our ships, not for our weapons, but for the heart of humanity. And that is something no enemy can ever destroy." As the humans regrouped, salvaging what they could and repairing their battered ships, the silence of the alien fleet became a symbol of resilience, of courage, of a species that refused to be conquered. The galaxy had laughed at humans, mocked their small, patched fleet. Now the silence among the stars spoke louder than any weapon ever could. Humans were not to be underestimated. Even in the aftermath, Hart knew there were battles ahead. Other civilizations would test humanity. Other enemies would come, expecting to see weakness. But this victory was proof. Proof that even the smallest, most fragile ships could challenge the mightiest forces if guided by courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will. Lena gazed out at the black expanse, dotted with distant stars and drifting alien ships. "We survived," she said softly. "We really survived." "Yes," Hart replied, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "And the galaxy will never forget it. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not break. Humanity endures." Somewhere in the silent stars, the defeated alien fleet drifted, powerless, humbled, and forever warned. They had laughed at humans once. That laughter had cost them everything. And for the human fleet, battered but alive, a new legend was born, one that would echo across the galaxy for generations. The battlefield was quiet now, but the silence carried a heavy weight. The alien fleet had gone still, their massive ships drifting like broken monuments in the void. Humanity had won, but the victory was not without cost. The human fleet, though intact in spirit, bore the scars of sacrifice. Ships were damaged, lives were lost, and the memories of the fallen lingered in every corner of the surviving vessels. Captain Elias Hart walked through the corridors of the USS Perseverance, his steps slow and deliberate. He passed by empty bunks, silent stations, and memorial plaques for those who would never return home. Each one was a reminder that freedom and survival came with a price. Hart's chest ached with sorrow, yet he held his head high. Humans had endured what no one expected. Humans had turned despair into courage, fear into determination. Lieutenant Mara stood on the observation deck staring at the stars that had witnessed their struggle. She whispered the names of the crew they had lost, friends, pilots, engineers, all heroes who had given everything to protect humanity. "They fought so we could live," she said softly. "We have to honor them." Hart joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Every life lost is a story of bravery," he said. "Every sacrifice makes us stronger, and every soul that fell will live in the memory of those who remain. Humanity endures because we carry our fallen with us." Elsewhere, Lena moved among the young pilots, offering quiet words of encouragement. Her fighter had been damaged, her body weary, but her spirit was unbroken. "We've survived," she told them, tears streaking her face. We fight because we must. We remember those who gave their lives so we could continue, and we promise to carry their courage forward. The surviving human fleet slowly regrouped, salvaging what they could from the wreckage, repairing damaged ships, and tending to the wounded. The crew worked in silence, grief and pride intertwined. There were no cheers this time, only a deep, solemn understanding that every victory came at a cost. In the alien fleet, the once mighty warships drifted, empty and powerless. Xeron sat in stunned silence, his pride shattered. He had laughed at humans, mocked their fleet, and underestimated their spirit. And now, the silence of his own ships was the loudest message he had ever received. Humans were not to be taken lightly. Not now, not ever. Back on the Perseverance, Hart convened a meeting with his senior officers. "We've won a great victory," he said, his voice steady. "But the war is far from over. Humanity has shown the galaxy what we are capable of, and now the galaxy will watch us closely. We must be ready for what comes next." Mara nodded. "Captain, we've proved that courage, ingenuity, and unity can overcome any odds. But the loss of so many, it will shape our future." Hart looked out at the stars, the same stars that had guided humans through centuries of hardship. "Yes," he said softly, "and that is the legacy we carry. We fight, we endure, and we survive. Not because we are the strongest, but because we never give up. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us unstoppable." Across the fleet, survivors shared quiet moments of reflection. Some knelt in prayer, others embraced, and a few simply stared into the infinite darkness, remembering those who had fallen. Each life lost was a reminder of the price of courage, but also a symbol of what humans could achieve when they stood together. Even in the midst of mourning, there was pride. The human fleet had faced a foe that was meant to be unbeatable, and they had prevailed. They had turned ridicule into respect, despair into hope, and fear into courage. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's fleet, but now that laughter had been replaced with awe and caution. Hart stood once more on the bridge, watching his crew work tirelessly to repair their ships. "We will rebuild," he said, voice filled with quiet determination. "We will honor our fallen, and when the galaxy tests us again, we will be ready. Humanity endures, and humanity will never bow." In the silent expanse of space, among the drifting alien warships and the battered human fleet, a new story had been written, one of courage, sacrifice, and the indomitable human spirit. A story that would echo across the stars for generations to come. And as the surviving humans prepared to return to their homeworld, they carried with them more than victory. They carried hope, memory, and the unshakable knowledge that humanity could face any darkness and emerge stronger. The battle had been won, but the journey of humanity was far from over. And the galaxy would never forget the day when humans turned the impossible into reality. Years had passed since the battle in the void of stars, but the memory of that day remained vivid in the minds of all who had survived. Captain Elias Hart, older now with streaks of gray in his hair and lines carved by years of responsibility, stood on Earth, gazing at the night sky. The stars seemed brighter tonight, as if honoring the fleet that had dared to challenge the impossible. The galaxy had changed. No longer did civilizations dismiss humanity as insignificant. The aliens who had once laughed at Earth now spoke of it with caution and respect. Humans were no longer prey to be crushed. They were warriors, clever, courageous, and unpredictable. And it had all begun with a fleet that the galaxy had underestimated. Hart's thoughts wandered back to his crew, the young pilots, the engineers, the medics, and every soul who had risked their life in that battle. Many were gone, lost in the darkness of space. Yet their spirit endured in those who survived and in every human who looked up at the stars and knew what their species could achieve. Lieutenant Mara, now a commander herself, joined Hart, her eyes reflecting pride and sorrow alike. "They still tell the stories," she said softly. "Children on Earth hear about the fleet that silenced the galaxy's mightiest warships. They dream of being like us." Hart smiled faintly. "That is their right. Humanity's strength is not only in our courage but in our hope. Every story, every memory, every lesson we passed on will guide them. That is the true legacy of our fight. Across the galaxy, the remnants of the alien fleet floated silently, a stark reminder of the day they had underestimated humanity. No weapon, no size, no arrogance could match the fire within human hearts. And in the corridors of power and command, humans were no longer outsiders. They were equals, respected, feared, and remembered. On Earth, memorials were built to honor those who had fallen. Names were etched in stone, holograms displayed faces and stories, and families remembered the brave souls who had given everything. Yet even in grief, there was pride. Every life lost had a purpose. Every sacrifice had ensured that humanity survived to tell the story. Lena, now a veteran pilot and mentor to a new generation, stood among young cadets showing them the stars. "You see those lights?" she said, pointing at distant constellations. "Those are the places where humans proved that courage matters more than size, that determination matters more than weapons, and that the human spirit is unbreakable." The cadets listened in awe, their eyes shining with excitement and reverence. They had inherited a galaxy changed by human valor, a galaxy that had learned the lesson: never underestimate humanity. Hart watched quietly, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The battle had been more than a fight for survival. It had been a statement. Humanity had faced the greatest power in the galaxy and emerged victorious, not just through weapons or strategy, but through courage, sacrifice, and the refusal to surrender. In the distant reaches of space, the surviving alien fleets had reorganized, but they approached humans with caution now. Every commander knew the stories. Every soldier remembered the lesson. And somewhere, in the silence between stars, the memory of human ingenuity and bravery lingered like a warning. Humans were not to be mocked, laughed at, or underestimated. Hart turned to Mara and Lena, his voice low but proud. "The galaxy knows who we are now. But remember this: our duty is not over. Humanity must always be ready to defend itself, to fight for what is right, and to honor those who came before us. That is how we endure." Mara nodded, her eyes reflecting understanding. "We will carry their courage forward, always." The night sky seemed to respond, a silent witness to the legacy of a species that refused to bow. Humanity had faced ridicule, scorn, and overwhelming odds, and had turned every challenge into a story of triumph. The galaxy had laughed at their fleet, yes, but the laughter had faded into silence, replaced by awe, respect, and remembrance. And somewhere deep in the void, where stars burned and ancient fleets drifted, one truth echoed endlessly. Humans were small, fragile, and mortal, but within them burned a fire no force could extinguish. They endured, they fought, they survived. Captain Elias Hart took one last look at the stars, a quiet smile on his lips. "Let the galaxy remember," he whispered, "the day humanity showed its heart. The day they learned that courage, hope, and unity are stronger than any weapon. Humanity endures, and will never be forgotten." The stars twinkled back, silent but witness to the greatest story humanity had ever written, a story of bravery, sacrifice, and an indomitable spirit that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come.